Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Series 6 of Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours aims to record 1,000 loiners, that's people from Leeds, over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and tell me about what they do and let me record how this decade affects us. These are long-form interviews meant to challenge the short attention span content economy. That means they aren't always easy listening, but in my view, they are all worth listening to. They all tell us something about our guest, our city, and our time, not to mention something of what it's like to do that job and how someone got into that job. You're helping this project right now by being a listener, and I'd love for you to consider becoming a guest or a supporter of this project. Thank you for listening to this episode. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I actually wanted to be a journalist, but I didn't just want to sort of partake in the writing of articles and things. I wanted to do the photography as well to accompany it, and I kind of envisaged myself as sort of jet setting around and working internationally and covering things first, but giving a really true, honest representation of it. But yeah, photography and the writing side of it.
Where do you think that came from? Like, what was who were you sort of envisioning in that?
I think people like Lee Miller, the war photographer. I think because I used to read a lot as a kid. I just loved kind of absorbing information and sort of learning about other places, and I kind of was a little envious of people who discovered things first or were at the scene of things first, and I kind of thought, God, it must be so exciting. And I was always quite just creative as a child, but I was quite academic as well, and I always sort of did well at English and things. It came quite easily, so I just kind of thought, well, what career could I do where I get to do a bit of the academic and the writing side, but then still have that creativity and sort of never be bored. So yeah, it was very much in my head, I'd say around sort of 12, 13, right up until I started working in that industry.
You're listening to Series 6, Episode 4, and to my guest, Holly Thompson. This is another Squadcast recorded on the 9th of January, 2025. Hello, listener. Holly Thompson currently works as a property photographer and EPC assessor for an estate agent full-time, as well as having her own wedding photography business. Her working background has varied from newspaper publishing, advertising and marketing to a 5-year stint as a chef and doing health and safety work during the COVID lockdown. Holly left advertising in 2019 and finally kickstarted her dream of being a photographer. After building up clients in her first year as a wedding photographer, lockdown meant she suddenly needed to diversify to survive. The post-lockdown boom in the wedding industry in 2021 to 22 meant bookings were incredible. But with rising costs, economic shocks, and the ongoing cost of living crisis having an impact on prices and costs, Holly had to seek out full-time employment again, while also honouring her existing committed bookings. This is a long and wide-ranging discussion. There's a click on Holly's track, which, if I remember, was the wire from her headphones banging against something. You shouldn't notice it, even though I've told you about it. But if you do, it is on the recording. I caught and took out the easiest and most obvious ones. this was recorded a while ago now, but if you or someone you know is getting married in Yorkshire, or you're off to a wedding and they need someone for the pics, then go and check out Holly's website. Go check it out anyway. It's a nice website. Okay, let me know if I need to put the guest's website deets into the intros. They are in the show notes, as always, and will be in the outro to this episode as well, so stay tuned for that. Right, let's do this. Episode 159 of Working Hours with Holly Thompson. So, what was your first camera?
It was a Pax M3 that my Gramps, he'd had it for decades. He was in the RAF and he took it everywhere with him. And he sort of showed me how to use it, and he'd kind of let me have a go with it. He eventually gave me it. So yeah, I did learn on film before, digital came in. But yeah, I just seem to always remember having a camera in my hand, and I was always sort of paparazziing everybody at like family events and things, and they get really sick of it. But then I'd sort of love it if, say, a year later, one of my photos would sort of pop up and my mum would say, I didn't even know you took that, that's a lovely one, and it'd just be, a little moment or something. I always had a camera in my hand, even those sort of early 2000 little ones with like a little handle on that you'd kind of take out with you, that sort of, which they're all coming back in fashion now. Everybody wants that sort of aesthetic now. But I always had those, and it had the date stamp in the corner. I was that person. Yeah.
When did you... So, I'm guessing you've got darkroom, like, experience. So, when did you first develop your own shots?
Well, we did a bit of that. I was lucky enough that at school we had a very good art department. So I had a really good tutor, well, initially I did, that took us through that. So I did it as part of a group, and then, I think it was of a flower, if I remember rightly. I think we'd all been sort of sent around the grounds to just take photos of things. And I don't think it came out very well. I think I thought it was a bit overexposed, and I thought, oh, that's a bit naff. She was really encouraging and very much like, well, just give it a go, and if it goes wrong, you know what to do the next time, kind of thing. And I kind of liked that about it. And I thought, yeah, actually, it's not just about being in the right place at the right time. You've got to know how to do this in order to do the moment justice. So I did sort of opt to do art for A-level because I thought, well, I need to learn more. I need to sort of hone this craft. It's not just as easy as like, oh, well, I know how to take a decent picture in the moment. I really need to know what I'm doing. And I think when you're a teenager and you're at school, you start to learn which lessons and subjects you just don't really have to try with. And you kind of like, oh, I know what I'm doing with that. I don't really need to try with that. And I think I'd got a little bit like that with the sort of writing side of it. So I kept sort of pouring all my energy into art. But unfortunately, I got this new tutor for A2 level, and he just absolutely hated me. So then I decided to drop it, and I thought, well, I'll focus on English and media and communications, because that's more, it's going to be more useful. So the whole photography side of things took a back seat because I thought, oh, I'm not very good. I'll focus on the writing and the journalism side, and focus on getting into a decent uni and tick the boxes and go more academic. And I kind of just pushed it out of my head a little bit. But then I just missed it all the time, just being creative. So that's why when I did start working in newspapers, and luckily it was quite a big company, and they were very ahead of the curve with a lot of things. So they had a team that would go out and about and like film gigs and take photos of events and report it on like a younger platform at the time. It was obviously not like a MySpace or anything like that, but it was like a sort of young add-on to their website to kind of generate a new crowd. And they were quite encouraging with me getting involved in that and saying, yeah, go along with the girl that does video and, you can help her with sound or you can help her with filming, you can take photos. So I started doing it more and more. So it kind of just gave me that buzz back, like, oh no, I can do it. But maybe I just need to learn from people that are doing it rather than textbook stuff.
Practice.
Yeah. But I didn't really think about photography as a full-time career until I'd say like 2018. I'd been doing it on the side from working in advertising and primarily working in newspapers because I'd sort of decided I didn't really like the other side of journalism. And I thought, I'll just go into advertising. It's a little bit of creativity in it and you get to work with people and, the pay was good. But I would just sort of do things on a weekend. It was very much hobby sort of thing. And then I had a friend that asked me to shoot their wedding. And I was like, are you serious? And they said, yeah, we're getting married abroad. We're going to have sort of a celebration when we get back. So, would you just get some photos for us? Like, I really like your photos. And I was like, oh, okay. And I absolutely loved it. And I felt so honoured. So I thought, right, okay, I'll try and do this. And, I saved up and went on sort of workshops with people that had done it for years and learned from them and just kept practicing all the time. And I'd go to styled shoots. So I'd sort of save up and pay to do that and just kept getting experience, really. And then I got everything lined up to do it full time. I'd got enough bookings to see me through 2020. I was quite happy with what, I'd cultivated. And I thought, right, now's the time. Handed my notice in at my very secure job, good pension, good bonuses, loved who I worked with.
Good few years service.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I was good at it. And, it was like, right, okay, I'm self-employed now. I'm a photographer now. And then, obviously, the pandemic hit. And I thought, what do I do? Because obviously with wedding packages, generally you take a deposit and then people will pay the rest of the package sort of closer to the wedding date. And I thought, okay, I'm upset right now because my business has disappeared overnight. Everything I feel I've worked for has just gone poof, and I can't do anything about it.
No one's paying you to take pictures of the inside of your house or of empty streets.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing to. I can't. Yeah, but then I thought, well, that's a pretty selfish thought because there's all of these couples that have booked me that now can't get married, and they don't know when they can do that, and they're probably going to lose a lot of money. And I thought, well, this has got to end at some point. So I gave the deposits back. And I was in a very fortunate position that my brother needed somebody to help him with sort of planning and admin, bits of health and safety for his business. He was still able to operate because he's an engineer in like food production. And he said, look, I know, the predicament you're in, you need a job just till this blows over. And it was kind of a fortunate position where there was no sort of pressure on me. It's like, well, if this blows over in 6 months and you're ready to kind of go full time again, that's okay. If you can do it alongside, that's okay. But obviously you need to pay your bills. So that's what I did. Handed the deposits back. I still kept taking my camera out on walks and things, and I still kept trying to market myself and say, let's still have a conversation. if it's safe to kind of book it a year ahead, or you're looking at next year. And it gave me a little bit of time because I had that pressure off. And it was tight, it was hard. And I felt like it was a bit of a pipe dream. But then, once we kind of came out of lockdown, there was this insane tsunami of bookings. Because it was very much supply and demand. There was also a lot of wedding photographers that were established that could no longer honour rescheduled dates because they were already busy, whereas I was wide open.
Yeah.
It went from, sort of very carefully planned, lots of chats with my couples, knowing them quite well, knowing a lot about the venue and a lot about the day, to then getting a phone call when I've already got 2 booked in over the weekend, getting a phone call on like a Wednesday and saying, our photographer's got COVID, we need somebody for Monday. We're having to get married on Monday because, we've had to reschedule. Can you do it? Okay, first of all, what are your names? Nice to meet
Where
you.
Is it?
Because there were, all these couples and all these people were in just such panic. I think it's stressful enough anyway, planning weddings, but you sort of throw that in the mix and it just became very desperate. So I'd be like, right, yeah, okay. And I'd turn up, I wouldn't have met them, I wouldn't know the venue. And it really gave me a crash course in having to think on my feet and having to read people and understand, okay, what do they need from me today? I wasn't really marketing to a demographic that I really sort of, not saying that I didn't want, but it was very much like, I need to just take what I can get. I need to just take everything and do everything because there was just so much demand. And it was like, riding a wave. But then I feel like off the back of that, from a business point of view, yes, I got my name out there and I won some awards and everybody was happy and it was great. I hadn't really marketed my business as something where it had longevity. I was sort of seen as, well, she can fit us in quick. She's competitive with price, because at that time I was just kind of thinking about my couples more than myself at times. Like, oh, well, bless them. They've lost out all this money on this other photographer. I'm going to have to do it cheap because they need to get married and I want to help. And, there was none of that steady figuring out, well, is that covering my costs? Is that really what I should be charging?
There was a period of time as well, sort of in the last couple of years of, because the prices were going up for everything so much, and like so many people were kind of like, well, I'm holding your prices as long as possible because you're like, I don't want to stiff my customers for this. But you get to a point where you're kind of like, well, actually everything has doubled in price. I have to put my prices up.
Exactly that.
Yeah. And at what point are you being a fool not doing it? I've promised them and I've promised them.
Yeah,
it's a difficult call.
I think that thought hit me this time last year when things had sort of quietened right down. It always does around November, December anyway for inquiries and things, because everybody's then panicking about, paying for Christmas and things like that. But it got to the January and I was just like, where is my business gone? I've done all this work. People do know who I am. They know I do a good job. I'm getting great reviews. I'm getting awards. Where is it? And it was after me trying to raise my prices, which it wasn't for me to make any real profit. It was to just cover life. I have the same bills as everybody else, and I think there was a bit of a...
Well, if you end up doing sort of twice as much work for half as much money... then you're just losing money. You're not. The profit is gone at that point.
It's gone. And it had completely gone. And it was like, well, when you're just one person working, if you're doing something that it's so time consuming, you have to be so full of energy, and it's mental, it's physical, it's emotional. And then you've got all the editing to do, and then all the other business stuff to do. And it's a lot just on one person. I can't delegate anything. And I got completely burnt out with it. And And yeah, I kind of looked at my bookings for the rest of the year and I thought, some of these I'd agreed maybe 18 months ago when we weren't in a cost of living crisis, when that would have been sufficient, but now it's not. How do I then go to a couple who's signed a contract and say, is there any chance you could pay me a little bit more? Like, you just can't do that. And there's only so many you
but
can...
it's not going to look good, is it?
It's not going to look good. It's not when...
I mean, like, some people will be like, fine, I understand. But the ones that don't will be the ones that make the most noise, and then that affects your reputation. And,
which, it's such a huge thing, I think, obviously, in any industry, but when people are putting sort of a lot of trust in you to capture their day.
Their special day.
Yeah, you can't do it again. You've got one shot and you've got to get it right. They've got to trust you. And especially any talking around money, it almost went from some people kind of, we'll pay anything, we just want to get married. We're so grateful we were able to.
Yeah.
And they were so appreciative, and those sort of 2 years after. And then now it's sort of crept right back to the more you try and offer a little bit with what you feel is like a fairly priced package, and you're kind of actually looking at it thinking, that's barely going to cover what I need it to cover. So I'm going to have to do another one, which, will burn me out that month. But, you're sort of trying to provide more to sort of advertise yourself and rise above the rest. And it's so competitive because everybody else is in the same boat. And, camera equipment isn't cheap and insurance isn't cheap. And you still have to pay all the bills everybody else has to pay. But unfortunately, obviously, everybody's just feeling the pinch. And so, they are shopping around and they're thinking, well, they're a similar style, but, they're £200 cheaper, I'm going to go with them. And you just constantly feel like it's just always on a price point. And it's quite frustrating when I've then, sort of had this experience and I know what I put out, that it does make you question, is it worth it? When you kind of, I think when you come from a period of time, like, I'm an absolute millennial, but you come from a period of time where it's like, you get out what you put into things, and if you work hard, it'll pay off, and you kind of have that mindset drilled in to then kind of put that in. You sort of sit and think, but yeah, I'm seeing people not have to do as much and get twice as much, and you kind of think, well, what am I doing wrong? I'm trying really hard, I'm trying to be fair, and it can be quite disheartening at times. So that's why I went back to full-time employment, because I thought, well, I've got the experience, got the skill set, I can still do photography, I can still do something I enjoy every day, but perhaps have that office environment again, where I've got camaraderie again. I'm not this kind of lone wolf that's feeling a bit lost. And that might just take the pressure off me financially to then refocus back on, okay, what does your business need to look like and how do you resurrect it? Which I now feel I'm in a position to do. But it's like swings and roundabouts. It's always felt like that for me, in that, well, I need a job to pay my bills. I need a job to survive, but then I've got this, passion that I want to pursue.
Yeah.
But where's the time for that and the energy for that when I need to do that? So it's trying to find that balance, I think. And I think a lot of people feel conflicted from like going after what they really want to do or what they should be doing, as opposed to, well, what do I have to do right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all about the energy and resources. It's like, I was talking to you before we started recording about like having to work again. Like work as if what I've been doing is not work.
As if you've not been working. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's also this sort of, you are working in the marketplace. You're not entitled to your business being successful, all of that kind of thing. But at the same time, there's a whole thing in this. And we've not really asked questions. I mean, you've kind of covered a lot of the questions already. But yeah, right. Okay, let me try and put some structure into this before I go veering off into a big rant. So let's park that there for now. We might circle back to all of this, and let's do social media. Let's talk about social media.
Okay.
So just to clarify, now you're not just doing wedding photos, you're doing wedding photos, but you also do
The property photography.
photography as well. Mm-hmm. So have you given up on the wedding side?
No, I'm still doing weddings.
You're still doing them, yeah.
I've got some bookings for this year, but I'm just trying to do a marketing strategy that's going to attract the kind of packages I need to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
replanning.
Just kind of a bit of a reset. Okay, like what didn't go well, and why didn't I attract this sort of package, and why am I meeting resistance on these things? Why am I attracting this sort of budget when I know that there's still people that are spending X amount on a wedding and they really, really value photography, and they know that, if I'm going to spend £2,000 on a dress that I'm going to wear for one day, why can't I pay that and maybe then some if I'm getting photographs and a film of the day that I can watch forever? It's that sort of thing. I suppose I think there's been an element of I've had to rethink, well, do I still have it in me to do it with such gusto? And sort of make sure that I can do that, but it just has to be at a price that will allow me to live.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask. We're going to go on to social media.
Okay.
So, and I think it'll be interesting because obviously within the environment, like doing photography, it's that making a distinction between just and part of the problem is the bloody phones. Is that someone could just everyone's got a phone there. There are hundreds of photographs.
Everyone thinks they're a photographer.
Everyone's videoing it, like But you're also buying a specific product. You want wedding photography, and it is part of your wedding package. Like if you're doing the whole thing, like I'm a bloke and I'm thinking, well, you need the transport. You've got to have either the horse and cart or a car.
Yeah.
You need the venue.
Yeah.
You need the dress.
Yeah.
And you need photography. They're like minimum.
Yeah.
Oh, and the rings, obviously. The rings, you need them.
Yeah.
Someone to say the vows, but they're the key things. Even if you're just doing a registry office and you turn up on foot, you want a photographer. And it's distinguishing that package, but then that is kind of a marketing nightmare as well for you, because it's like, well, how do I make that distinction between the stuff that I'm churning out for the algorithm and my work, which is work and of a professional standard and so on, and is for long term, whereas this is disposable. So I want you to talk a little bit around that, but also the questions about like how much time do you put into social media and how much do you think it gives you back? Like, do you feel successful at it? Is it creating the value that you want? Are you getting what you want out of it?
Yeah, well, with social media, when I then did get a chance to jump straight back in and start marketing myself again and saying, hey, you can book with me, we can go ahead and do a wedding. I think it was at a time, especially after lockdown, when everybody was just stuck on their phones and doing TikTok dances and just checking their Instagram and looking at everybody's stories because it was some kind of connection. And I just feel like that obviously just didn't go away. Everything, I think, because people felt like their lives have been put on hold. The fact that you could do, a lot of things instantly, you could then order a lot more food and things have just become more instant. I then felt like, okay, I need to post all the time. And I'd done bits of social media and advertising before when I'd, worked in marketing, and I'd done various courses and things. So I knew a bit about how to sell myself. But because obviously there's a hell of a lot of people that know how to do that, and there's also a hell of a lot of people that work within the wedding industry, I felt like I had to churn out a lot of content very quickly, very regularly. Everything was about getting more followers back then. Like, people would just look at, well, how many followers have you got? They weren't really looking at engagement. They were just looking at how many followers do they have? That means they're more credible. So I felt like a performing monkey. When actually, I think if anybody asks sort of any of the couples I've ever worked with, they would say that I'm pretty authentic and I'm pretty upfront and I'm pretty down to earth. But I felt like, there's this trend on Instagram that everybody's doing, so I have to do it. And there was that sort of pressure there. And I felt like I kept up with it really well, and it got me followers and it got me engagement, but it didn't translate into messages in my inbox saying, oh, hi, we'd love to book you for our wedding. I did have people, a few people that had emailed me, or, we've seen you on Instagram, we've seen you on TikTok. But for me, I'd advertised with quite a big sort of, wedding planning thing online. It was hitched.co.uk. I'd advertised with them. They'd given me a lot of advice and they'd been really supportive throughout the pandemic, and I sort of chose to stay with them. And I felt that I'd just got more from that, from like a direct, people typing it in, seeing me there. Because people were still a bit dubious, I think, because people were getting cancelled on and scammed and things like that. I think seeing me on there got me a hell of a lot more business. But because I knew that every other wedding photographer that I deemed credible were always online across all platforms, it did take up a big chunk of time every day. I do feel like I was successful in getting my brand out there. But I think perhaps that's definitely slipped in 2023 because I didn't have the time. But it also started to really bother me because I thought, well, I shouldn't have to jump on something trending and do what everybody else is doing in order to be considered to do something that I do that feels different. I feel like I have a very different approach to the wedding day. And I don't really feel like I'm putting that out there and maybe getting that out on social media as well as what I could. And I wasn't quite sure how to do that because everything was about use this trending audio or do this stupid dance. And I just thought, I don't really want to do that. And do I really want the sort of people that enjoy that to book me? Like, probably not. I kind of want people to find it as sort of pointless as I do, because there's a big part of social media that I can't stand. I'd much rather people sort of find me on my website or be recommended by someone I've worked with, and it'd be a bit more old school, I guess.
Yeah. It's... I mean, it's the feed. It's the problem. I don't know if you will identify with this, but the problem that I have with social media, given the choice, I wouldn't be anywhere near any of it. I mean, apart from YouTube, which I know is technically social media, but
it's
no, it's the world's most popular TV channel. I wouldn't engage with any of it, but the problem is you have to, and you have to go and post something, and then you have to kind of look at a few things, or you get drawn in, and before you know it, you've said 15 things you regret, and then you're like, oh God, why have I wasted my time on this thing?
Or if you've offended someone when you've not meant to be offended.
Or you've been offended multiple times because they've just like, here, watch this thing die, and watch this, and watch these people die, and watch this happen, and like, look at this on fire.
Yeah. You sort of say something 3 times in one day, and then suddenly it's chucking loads of ads at you about that, and you're like, well, that's creepy. Yeah. I don't like that.
So, yeah, there's that whole interaction. And then on there, they're like, well, you just need, they're trying to create this impression that you need follow. What you need is an iron will when you go on there and just be like, no, it's about the people that care about my stuff, hopefully seeing it. And if they do, when they do, they like it and they're happy about it.
Yeah.
Because it's that kind of, it's that shop front. If you're thinking about being on a high street presence, like you don't have to do the same thing that every other shop does, but you put personality into your own shop and, that kind of reflects your brand, all that kind of stuff. It's not like you don't have to chase nonsense and do stupid stuff over and over again.
Yeah. There's so much pressure around it, I think, as well, because, if people say it's the happiest day of their lives, they want a happy person being there. They want an upbeat person. You have to have such a game face on, which most of the time comes naturally. But when you feel like you've got to create these, this content and put it out there like, oh my God, I have the best job in the world. I'm so happy all the time. Everything's great. When actually, like, that day it might not have been so great. You might have just had a really bad day, but you feel like you have to put this sort of persona on and constantly be upbeat and constantly be a representation of what somebody's going to get on the day. And it's like quite a lot. And I think that's what I got sick of. I was having quite a stressful, challenging year. And I just thought, oh God, I can't bear to put a story on being like, such a great day today editing. Like, actually, no, today my Mac decided to have 6 rounds of updates and it crashed and lost half of my work and it's been hell, so, but it's like, if you do kind of talk about that sort of stuff, people get the impression like, oh, she's a bit miserable. I don't want her there on my wedding day. Like, I want, the bouncy upbeat one.
Well, so they don't, well, you don't want to be too moany, do you? But
no.
It's like, it's so, and it's such a minefield, isn't it? Because it's like, oh, well, you're supposed to know exactly what to do. Do this performance without a script. Do this whole improvised sort of thing. Like, be yourself. But it's that Disney-fied kind of like, be yourself.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Who's that? Like,
who's that? Which version? There's several.
yeah. What audience am I talking to? Everybody. Yeah. Oh, great. So what personality is that then?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you, can you make a distinction then? Like, do you feel there's a real distinction? I mean, obviously you do, but how do you realize that? I mean, I suppose you're using different tools for the different things. And
types
of things.
I mean, I tried sort of using like proper scheduling software and like really, really testing out different kinds of content. Because I just started to feel a bit stupid about it all. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try the same thing on Facebook and then the same thing on Instagram, the same thing on TikTok, and measure it and look at it and think, what is perhaps, bringing me more interest, and how many clicks through to my website am I getting from these? And I really drilled down into it. I found that, my sort of couples and people that were finding me were generally sort of Instagram, Facebook. So I did concentrate on those more, but then obviously TikTok's blown up. And, that sort of age range of people getting married are now on TikTok. Back when, a couple of years ago, it was still a fairly young sort of, app. But I did look at it all, but then I just started to think, well, it feels frustrating because for me, I'll put something together that I feel does represent me and sort of sells me, and I'm highlighting where I'm different or whatever, and I've looked at this and it looks a lot like this one, and I'll spend hours on it and put it out, zilch, nothing. But then I'd be like, right, fine, well, okay, I'll cave. This is trending audio. I'll put some stupid little clip to that and put that up and it's a 15-second thing. It doesn't really show anything about me. But, oh, wait, it's got, 200 likes on it and loads of comments. And it's like, what do you want from me?
Yeah, but that's the machine, isn't it? It's like, but it's just showed it to a bunch of people because, the various links that it's drawn. But it's like none of those people could be like,
No.
or none of them could be people that are relevant to you at all.
No.
They could be, distributed
probably,
around the world, whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
not
that's a nice
who I need
picture.
to reach, and that's not what I want to get. You know.
Yeah, I feel
It's
like
reaching those
I felt like I was smashing social media, but really, when you break it down, it's not really done me any favours, I guess. I think word of mouth still, and my couple's recommended me. I mean, I've had one bride that have then had 6 weddings since her wedding. Not just because she's done it, but the next person and the next person. But it all sort of links back, and it's like, well, I kind of value that more than maybe getting 10 inquiries in my DMs. Because, yeah, you feel like you're sort of having to play this big game and, just like, oh, can you just look at me in the sea of other people? It just feels a bit silly at times.
But the other thing as well is like, you think of something like Amazon and, and the whole algorithmic sales thing. It's like, what happens when you go on Amazon? They try to sell you all the stuff that you've bought already.
Yeah.
And this is like, and that's the kind of online space. It's like, you liked this, like it again.
Yeah, so
buy it again, buy it over and over.
Yeah.
But unless you get lucky with someone who's like going to have a few weddings,
that's it.
You don't have a repeat.
No,
a repeat buyer.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally if they have kids and stuff, I'll do like baby shoots for them if they come forward.
That's what I was going to say. Portraiture. You could do family photos and kind of through the life of various points. Yeah. Not enough people in this country buy family portraits.
No.
They should.
They should. I think it's lovely, and they do have fun doing it as well. But it is something generally. You just do. You're doing it once. And a lot of them, I'd say 80% of them, I don't see them again for work. I probably do stay in touch. Some of them are friends, but you don't kind of get that repeat business. It's not like, I don't know, I'm a tradesperson and, oh, well, you did a really good job on that. You can do our extension. It doesn't work like that. So I think that's it. I think I've sort of learned there's got to be more authenticity in terms of the kind of clients I'm getting and I'm trying to market to, so that it aligns with what I need price wise to survive. But it's tempting to just kind of do things cheaply and jump along to the gimmicks of social media just to get something.
Because it seems like it's working for other people, doesn't it? It's like,
it looks like
it's happening over there. Something's happening over there.
Yeah.
No,
but like, is it?
I
is
don't
it not
think
just
it is.
smoke and mirrors? Everyone's seen the memes, haven't they? Like Instagram versus reality, and I just find it the biggest joke because I'm like, well, I see so many people even at festivals or events or like days out or nights out, and they're there and they're like, oh, I've got to get a photo of this for Instagram. And they might be sat at the most boring table and they're not even having a good time, but they'll, take a photo and like, oh, get in, like, and they're all smiling. And then within 2 seconds, you see them all go back to like being flat and just sat on their phones. And it's like, that's not what was happening, but you're trying to make it look like that. But I do hope it kind of comes back around the other way and people start to think, well, no, I kind of want to see what's the reality. Because I think that's where I've struggled with it. I've always wanted the truth and the reality of things and just documenting what's happening.
Yeah.
A lot of it seems quite contrived.
Yeah, but that's the whole medium thing, isn't it? It's like it's never the truth.
No.
It's a medium for representing the idea of thing.
Yeah, like
things.
Here's my life but polished. Yeah.
Yeah.
With a
here's a moment. Here's part of a tiny part of a moment, not the whole moment because you can't see outside the frame.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so it's a minefield. And I think we put too much energy into it. So what I was going to ask in terms of follow-up, so obviously word of mouth is a big one for you on the wedding side.
Definitely.
What about venues? Like,
Oh, huge.
are
Yeah.
venues pretty good at sort of referring you
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
recommends and
It's,
stuff?
you know, I feel like I quickly figured out, because I was going to so many different venues, I quickly figured out, okay, if there's a team that I really get on with, that I love how they work, and they put as much energy into this as what I do, and they really care about it, I'm going to make so much effort with them because I want them to recommend me. And that kind of followed quite naturally. So there's quite a few venues that, you know, they'll have their wedding planners sort of say, well, here's a photographer that we work with a lot and we trust them. They know how we work. We know how they work. It creates cohesion on the day. So I do get quite a few that say, oh, we've just booked at so-and-so and they recommended you, which it's wonderful, that feeling. And it's also just like, okay, that's one element I don't need to worry about. I know the team, I know the place. I can give examples to the couple and say, well, this is what I did with this couple, but here's an idea I've had. And, you know, it's just a little bit more information for them. But yeah, that's lovely. I think it kind of works nicely both ways in collaborations like that. The venues feel like, okay, we are recommending someone we trust. We know that they're not going to get in our way, or they understand we can't do this like this, and we don't have to worry about them. They'll just come in and crack on.
And we know that people who've
Yeah.
used you before are
Yeah.
happy with you, and
Yeah.
we're happy to recommend because, you know,
Yeah,
people who are our customers were their customer, and that all works good. So
Yeah.
let's keep it going.
yeah, I do love that. But you do also, it's kind of like, I suppose, you know how some actors get typecast? It's almost sometimes a little bit like that. You start to think, I don't just want to be booked there. I still need some variety, because then if people start to think, oh, I've had like 3 friends that have had that photographer at the venue, I don't want
and they
them
all
because
look the
I want to
same,
be
the
different.
photos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to be different, you know, because everybody wants to feel like their day is completely unique, even if they may have 2 or 3 of the same suppliers. Like, it will still be different because everybody is different. But I think people have a real sense of, well, I want mine to be different. So you don't really want to get too known for being associated with one particular venue or 2 particular venues. But I think they are quite good at making sure that doesn't happen. I think they are quite fair, you know, with like a few photographers, for instance, and, you know, they don't just kind of, you know. But I think on the whole, the industry's really supportive of each other, because we know how hard it is and how much harder it's become. It's not like I don't find it a cutthroat industry, which is what I found sort of journalism and advertising to be. It was very much dog eat dog, whereas I feel like, you know, if you go to a wedding day and you spot a supplier you haven't seen before and they're like brand new, or it's like their 2nd or 3rd wedding, you know, everybody kind of wants to cheerleader them and wants to see them succeed, and they'll go on their own pages and promote them and say, oh, I had a great day, everyone check this person out. And there's a lot of that camaraderie there, which is really nice, and I wasn't expecting it. But I think, I suppose if you go into it with that attitude, it serves you well, because, you know, venues know you're a nice person, and you kind of, you know, you're willing to big each other up. I mean, it's the only awards evening I've been to where you literally cheer everybody. You know, there's no sort of sour faces, and everyone's like genuinely happy, like, oh wow, they've won, like they deserve it, even if it's your category. You're not bothered, because I think you know how hard you know each other works.
I mean, it's a very interesting industry in itself, you know, for all of those. But it's generally a positive sort of thing, but it's also stressful. It's like, because the people who are most unhappy during the whole wedding planning process are the unhappy couple who are planning it all. And it's all ultimately for that day, and it's all ultimately for those photographs, really, because it's not about the day and how people remember it. How people remember it will be those wedding photographs.
That's what you capture.
So you're building up to this whole thing, but that's very stressful for them. But you get to be happy for them sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're part of your team. We know this is really hard for you,
Yeah.
but you know, we're here with you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing when you see, you might be on your sort of third wedding of the week and you go into bridal prep or groom prep, and you're looking around at the other sort of tired suppliers that you know they've been on like a few back-to-back weddings and they're just living off coffee, and they're just, you know, somebody in the bridal party be like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I meant to go to bed at 9 last night, but I went to bed at 11 and I was up at 6 this morning and I'm just so tired. And you'll just see a little look between the suppliers, look at each other like, you don't know what tired is. But then we'll all just be like, oh, it's okay, let's just get you a coffee, we're all fine. And then you just have to be so up, and it's just hilarious. You know, we just speak with our eyes like, it's okay, guys. And, you know, you sort of, like, how many have you got left this week? Or what time do you finish tonight? Oh, we don't knock off till 1. Like, right, keep going. And, you know, you're sort of really in the thick of it, but you just wouldn't sort of see that as a wedding guest, I think. I think it's just this unwritten rule that, you know, you've maybe just sat down to perhaps eat a sandwich after 8 hours of shooting, but you have a drunk person come up and say, hi, can you take a photo of me and my boyfriend? And you literally have to go, yeah, of course I can. Come and stand over here. And it's like, I literally just need to eat. I'm going to black out in a minute. But you just cannot drop, you know, the facade. So I think that's where the sort of mutual respect comes on, because we all see each other do it.
Yeah, show must go on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and as well, I'm guessing because you're dealing with anxious people, and most people, you know, they've never done it before, and we're not good at doing stuff we've never done before.
Yeah.
It's just like we don't know what to do because we've not done it before.
Yeah.
So you'll get a lot of out of hours calls and nerves and emails and back and forth, and it's just like, you know this. I said this to you when we first met 6 months ago.
It's reassurance.
And you've asked me 85 times.
Yeah, but it is, you have to kind of be weirdly prepared to be that sort of, just that reassurance. And I always think, well, you know, imagine what maybe conversations they're having in the run up to it, because, you know, if they're being this anxious with me, then internally, you know, they're gonna, and sometimes they mask it quite well, and you can think, oh, they're so chill, and it gets to the morning and you can just see the anxiety just all over them, and you know, you've got to switch hats quite quickly. You know, sometimes you have to pick up and sense, okay, they're feeling anxious because I've got a lens in their face, because to me the light's fallen beautifully and I want to get a shot of that earring, and oh wow, that's great, but just at that moment they were thinking, oh, I really wish my grandmother was here. You know, you've got to really pick up on things quickly, and also look around and see if anything's irritating them, even if it's a family member or, you know, anything you can do to just get in front of a problem and constantly, like, make it so that they don't have to think about it and keep them calm. And, you know, it's not just taking photographs, I don't think. A lot of the time, you know, you're there holding a coat, you're there as an additional bridesmaid or groomsman, and, you know, you've just got to be everything they need at that time, because they've never done it before, but, you know, you've seen so many weddings and you know that it's all going to be all right, and even if things do go wrong, it'll still be the best day. You know, you're not going to let anything ruin it. You know that, but they don't know that. But yeah, you've got to really, like, think on your feet, which is fun. I think you just got to embrace the chaos, and if you just accept you can't control it all, you know, you just got to kind of keep moving with it. Then it's exhausting, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Do you cry at weddings then?
Oh my God, yeah. Not every single one.
You're just there with the camera bawling all the time.
Yeah, not every single one, but sometimes. Yeah, it depends, because obviously they're all different. But I don't know. I think if perhaps I'm aware of certain dynamics or certain things going on, it can, you know, you can just sort of feel it in the room sometimes, and you know, I'll catch myself, I'm like, oh my God, why am I crying? This is so embarrassing. I'm going to be a professional. And, you know, I'm the first person to kind of see after the ceremony. And if they see me and I'm sort of teared up, they're like, oh my God, are you crying? And I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry. Like, that was really beautiful. I think they take it as quite a compliment. And they're like, you must do so many weddings. I'm like, I know, it takes, you know, now and again, it does bring me to tears. But I did have a quite embarrassing one. I was in this sort of beautiful church. It was a massive wedding. A lot of planning had gone into that one. And my grandfather had died about 2 days before. And I hadn't really had quite a lot of time to just sort of, you know, just get my head around it, have a little minute. And I was very much like in the thick of wedding season, autopilot. It was my last wedding of the week. And I was fine. I was, you know, sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. But then they put on this song that very much reminded me of him. And I'm stood at the front, but it's playing right after the, you know, they've said their vows and they've had the first kiss and everything, and everyone's sort of like there singing along. And I couldn't stop it, and there's just tears running down my face. I'm trying to shoot, I'm trying to get these close-ups. And the mother of the bride clocked me, and she was like, oh, bless you. And I just lied. Because I looked so upset. It didn't look like happy tears, so I had to just instantly put a smile on. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, it's just so beautiful. Sometimes I just get emotional. And she went, oh, I find that so lovely. And I was like, I know. Because I just, you know, it can never be about you. You have to be very present, but also a ghost and in the background. And, you know, that was quite a little learning moment. I was like, right, well, if I can mask it, I'll be fine with anything now. That's fine. You know, that was what I really wanted to do. Like, oh, it really reminds me of my granddad. But at the time, I've been like, what are you talking about? This is my wedding day, you know? I mean, they were lovely, but you've constantly got to check yourself and how you face it. It's like, day to day, I've got resting bitch face all the time. I can't help it. I was born like that. But, you know, it has to mould on a wedding day.
Well, you know, if the world tried harder and turned up more often, then, you know, you would have a better expression on your face.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it is capable of doing it. It just doesn't want to.
Exactly. If it was all less disappointing.
Yes. If things just went as they're supposed to go, then I wouldn't have resting bitch face. It wouldn't be written all over my face.
What is this now? Ugh.
Yeah. What now?
So I'm going to run something else by you before I move off this. I'm going to ask about the property photography as well. But while you were talking then, I had this idea, you know, going back to the sort of war photography of being like a documentarian photographer in a domestic situation in a household, taking like, you know, high contrast black and white photographs of arguments. And
yeah. I mean, yeah, if I could make a living from that, I would absolutely do it.
Yeah. I might make an amusing sketch, but I don't think there's much more to the idea.
Yeah, like, oh, she ventures into the... Yeah.
So property side. So how did that come about? And is that is there enough work in it? Is it steady, straightforward?
Yeah. Very, very steady, very consistent. It's very enjoyable. I actually didn't know whether I was going to enjoy it or not. So it was at this point last year that I thought, yeah, I need a full-time job again. I don't want to just go back into advertising. I want to stick with photography, but I don't think I'm going to find anything that will be more portraiture. So I need to look at, okay, what is there always plenty of? What do I've done bits on the side and I quite enjoyed it. And I thought, well, it's varied. I'm not going to get bored. And I saw a job posted at an estate agent in Horsforth, Hardesty & Co. I had a read about, you know, just what they were about, and they kind of appealed to me because they were more sort of a family business. I'm from a family business. My families are farmers. And yeah, they were looking for somebody to do all the property photography, Monday to Friday, but they also needed them to do an EPC qualification in assessing domestic energy, which I'd never done before, but I'd done health and safety stuff, so I thought, okay, it can't be that hard, I'll do the course. And so, they hired me. I think they were quite happy that I had a photography background, because I think in the past it had always been perhaps a negotiator had thought, I want to change of pace, I quite fancy doing the photos, and then they kind of learnt on the job. So I think they were quite happy that, I just needed to learn the property side, I guess. But it's been really good. I get to kind of, one minute I'm in a, £2.4 million massive house, and I'm like, wow, don't touch anything. And the next minute I'm just in like a really lovely little 2 down, and you can see someone's spent ages cleaning and tidying it, and they really want it to look perfect. But I get to meet so many people in so many different situations, and no 2 days are ever the same. I think I underestimated how rewarding it would be to know that I'm having a little small part in helping, somebody sell their house, because I think I was a bit naive before, and I thought, not that it was a bit like selling Sunset or anything like that, but I think because I'm not a homeowner, I've not been in a position to earn one yet. I think as I started to meet people, perhaps older people that want to downsize and have a simpler life, and it's quite a hard thing for them to do, to think, oh, well, I need to sell this, and
it's awful moving.
I need to,
and especially if you've been in one place for ages.
Which a lot of them, have. But then to sort of see, them come in the office and pick their keys up, and they're off to like this new lovely fresh start, and they're really excited, and to know that you've kind of played a small part in that, okay, I took the photographs that people saw and initially wanted to come and view. Like, I don't think I realised how much enjoyment I would get from that. I think I went into it with a little bit of trepidation because I haven't worked in that industry before, but I think people have stereotypes of estate agents, much like, they have with people in any kind of sales thing. And I'm not saying that I did, but I didn't imagine that they would all care so much about getting the best situation for people. And I think it's helped me not be as defeatist, because I think I'd got quite defeatist this time last year, and thinking, oh, well, everybody's just out for themselves, and nobody really values hard work anymore, and no one values skills and ambition or drive or, initiative. And I did get quite, but working there has sort of really restored that. And it's also allowed me to, learn some new skills again, which I kind of thought I was long past. Being 36, I thought I'd got to be like an old dog can't learn new tricks kind of thing. And it's made me sort of get back to like, I want to learn more, and I want to, get some new skills and see what else I can do. And I think I initially thought, well, I need the security, I need the pressure off me financially, and but now it's like, well, I want to find a way where I can do my business in a way that works for me, but I still want to continue doing this. Because, perhaps I don't get the validation that I seek in weddings anymore, but I very much do in this role, and it's nice having a bit of support of a full-time job again, I guess.
I mean, well, maybe the weddings thing will come back for you, but I mean, you mentioned burnout a couple of times when we were discussing, so I would underline that. I think you probably, I think you probably just reached your limit with weddings, especially after that busy period, and it's that when you're not getting rewarded for it.
No.
And that's underestimated. Like the whole thing with this, I was talking to you earlier. So it's that I've got like 10 interviews banked, and I like listening to the interviews. I've enjoyed every interview that I've done, I just don't want to sit down and edit them. Because why? For who?
For what?
Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything, go anywhere. It's only for me.
Yeah.
So why does it matter? I mean, it's for them as well, because obviously they've given me the time in the interview, so I've got to put them out. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's.
But
like,
it makes it so much harder, and it puts you off. It makes me hate it.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kills the pleasure in it, and it's like I don't hate it. I enjoy these interviews. I enjoy what people have said. I want to listen to them. I want to put them out there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't reward me on any level, and that hurts.
Yeah.
And you can only do that for so long. And I think as well, because you're doing the property, and like you say, you're not abstract from the customer, from the reality of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a really direct kind of, I am helping them sell this house, which is vital to the next stage of their life, which is a huge thing, like a wedding. I mean, you're in the, the most stressful things you can do, sort of wedding, moving.
Yeah. I just like picking the stressful parts of people's lives by the sounds of it, isn't it? What's next?
And helping them through it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to be a midwife next. Yeah.
Well, I knew, I have a friend, I used to live in Amsterdam, and I had this friend from America. She went back to the US, and she was doing birth photography. So she would be there at the birth taking photographs. I was like, people pay for that? And then I was like, yeah obviously they do. Of course they do. But that'd be wild.
That's like quite a, I mean, it's I guess it's an honour, but it would be like, whoa, you know, like, I was there when you were born, you know. Yeah, mad. Yeah.
Okay, let's, on the property side, doing that photography, I guess you don't have to, because is it a full-time job?
It's full-time. Yeah. So a lot of estate agents use like outsourced companies. So they'll just kind of send somebody that just goes, bang, bang, bang throughout houses throughout the day. But company I work for, they like having an in-house photographer.
I mean, you need to if you want to keep your brand consistent, I think.
Yeah. I think they just know that... it's just a lot easier as well, just knowing, okay, if they want me to kind of go back because the weather's changed or they've done something different to the garden or something, I'm more than willing to do that, and they don't have to reschedule with a company that doesn't perhaps care as much. And, sometimes with older people, they don't like using emails and things like that. They want to come into the office and I can get them on the screen and talk them through it. And, I think it's nice that they've retained that, because I think a lot of companies are kind of phasing that out because, you can,
which is a mistake. Yeah,
you can book freelancers and stuff, and that's fine. But I think, the people that I go out to, I go to sort of 4 houses a day sometimes. They'll ask me questions about the process and the business, and I know that because I've been told it, and I know how to reassure them or how to tell them what to do next, or. Yeah. And I think it's just got a bit more faith from people, really. Bit more trust there, which is nice. I think it reminds me of how work used to feel maybe sort of 15 years ago, where it's very upfront and fair.
Well, I think there's a certain... I think there's a trend and a push and a logical progression with the online stuff of like, well, none of us trust the media now, apart from this media, which we have in our hands, which we trust because it's in our hand.
Yeah.
But also we don't trust it. And it will ultimately get to that point, especially with more AI and nonsense like that. It's like, all of this, I can't trust any of this. Yeah. I will only speak to a person in front of me now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think people are getting to a point where, there's so much fake news, there's so much filtered, there's so much just fake stuff everywhere online.
And so much of it is just for clicks, isn't it? It's just like you're seeing stuff and you're like, why am I seeing this? Is everybody involved here knows that's nonsense. The person who made the post knows it's nonsense. I know it's nonsense.
What's the point?
The algorithm knows it's nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. I think people are starting to sort of call out for a bit more reality and a bit more. Okay, I can trust this person. It doesn't have to be everything that I want to hear, and it doesn't have to tick all these boxes. But I can trust it because it's authentic, and it's not filtered, and I do. I think that's what I really enjoy about it. You're just having face-to-face conversations with people. I very rarely use email at work. I don't have a phone at work because the office will book my appointments. They'll say, Holly will be with you at this time. I will be with them at that time. They're expecting me. I'm there. I'll talk them through what we're going to do. They're instantly like, oh, okay, like fine. Because people are nervous if you shoot in their house. They're frightened that, they're going to leave their pants on the radiator or something. But, it can be like nerve-wracking for people. And, if I say I'm going to do something, or, okay, I'm going to edit that out for you, or, oh, yes, we can do that, they know that they've got that accountability as well, because if I get back to the office and I haven't done it, they know they can speak to my manager or speak to a colleague and like, oh, Holly said she was going to do this, and I'm not just some kind of nameless, faceless
just someone that turns up that will never be seen again.
They know if I do a terrible job, they can just come in the office and be like, who gave you a camera, I think everybody's missing that a little bit. You used to be able to do that if there was a mistake or something, and you could go and speak to somebody. And I think that's what I'm kind of liking about it is, a bit less smoke and mirrors, a bit more reality. And it's nice. Integrity, I think is the word.
There's nothing wrong with being called out. Like, if you do something wrong or you've messed up, and be given the chance to address it and rectify it. Just because all the people that they show us all the time, they screw up everything all the time, intentionally and unintentionally, never apologise, never accountable, never get any punishment for it.
And just live the best
normal
life.
People don't work that way.
No, we're flawed. We're flawed little beings. Things happen. Yeah. No, I think
we recognise that in other people. We're kind of like, you messed up. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Right, do it right now.
Yeah. How else do you learn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't always know. Sorry, carry on.
No, go on.
Yeah, I was just saying that I didn't always know, how to do what I can do now. It's always started with a process, and there's times you look back and you think, oh, I wish somebody had just said like that could have been a bit better. Like, you have to be quite critical of yourself and your work, But I think a lot of people hide behind keyboards and things a lot as well, and don't just say it up front. And we've sort of lost that a little bit, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, and because we're made to spend too much time on social media sites that fill our heads with nonsense. Yeah. What was the other thing I was going to ask you on this? I just wanted to go back to lockdown briefly. So, when you were working at your brother's place, was that remote or was it a kind of hybrid thing?
It was a bit hybrid. So what my brother did, because he had a team of engineers, they had to kind of make sort of like a bubble together, I guess. They had to be very careful. We had to do a lot of regular testing because they were basically maintaining and repairing a lot of food production sites and sort of working with grain handling and that kind of thing. And that can't stop, or else the country doesn't get fed. And he basically, I had my own little office. It was my responsibility to just make sure, I was sort of keeping everything clean. And it's not the sort of office where people come in and out a lot. It's on sort of, it's near to where sort of my parents lived, kind of thing. But even with that, I had to be sort of mindful of it. So it would normally be maybe 2 days, sometimes 3 days a week. I would go physically be in the office because there'd be things I'd have to check and do inventory on. But if there were sort of risk assessments and reports to do, he would often say, well, if you can do it from home, do it from home. But I would have to go out to site sometimes to do assessments and just check that we were following, the measures that we'd put in place, and keeping up with health and safety. So I would have to go to site, but a lot of the sort of bigger sites we'd go to, they'd have their own procedures, and it was just very easy to kind of follow and go along with. So it was still quite varied. It's not like I was just completely sat working from home, feeling that monotony. I think that really helped me. I think I was quite fortunate that I still had that variety there.
Because that would have been really hard being, from being in weddings and going out and traveling.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's the side of like, oh, I get to sit down for a bit.
Yeah.
And there's I need to get out of here.
Yeah. Well, that was it. I still got to go outside. I had a reason that I could go in the car and, drive 30 minutes to a site and breathe in some fresh air and, do something that I knew sort of mattered. I think the only thing for me was that I lived on my own at the time. And my partner and I were relatively new when lockdown began. And my partner was in centre of Leeds. I was back over in Driffield. So we were a bit sort of stuck. And then it was a case of, okay, are we ready to live together? This is probably a lot sooner than what we would have both wanted, because we're quite independent. But I thought, right, well, I'm going to have to, 'cause, I can justify going to a site, and I'm there to do a risk assessment and there to make sure we're sticking to COVID rules. If somebody pulls me over and says, well, where are you going? What are you doing? Can't really justify it, even though I know myself and, my partner are keeping very to ourselves, and say, well, I'm just going to, see my partner. I don't think that'd go sort of down well. So, moved in during lockdown, and then, we're still going to different sites and things. And luckily it was absolutely fine. We had a great time. A lot of people obviously found it really difficult with partners, and I get that. I mean, I had some couples that were no longer getting married after it, and I got why, but we sort of just crash coursed kind of thing. But I think we were lucky we were both still working. But I think as soon as it was over with, we were like, right, let's get out and about and just let's do everything kind of thing. We missed the whole dating thing.
Once you were if you weren't sort of immediately at risk, and no one around you seemed to be getting, because I mean, I was very much. So one of the first recordings of this was I think it was January 2020, and I think I put it as an extra, and I'm banging on about this I saw this stupid thing on the BBC about this virus in Wuhan, and it's there was some guy sat in a bedroom saying, "Oh, I'm in Wuhan, and it's all closed out there." It's well, show us then.
Show us it.
It was literally there was no background behind it. It was well, show us something.
Prove it.
And the red maps everywhere. I'm like, this is all nonsense. This is all nonsense.
Yeah.
And then we locked down, and then for ages I'm like, well, I'd read up on it and I'd read some other stuff, and I was kind of like, okay, right, so it is real, but why has no one got it? Why do I not know anyone that's got it? And I also think I got it in 2019 in November.
So did I. I got it in December.
The early one, and it was just like, what's this? And it lasted for ages and wouldn't go away. Yeah. And it's like, this is weird. This isn't.
I ended up in hospital with it.
Did you? What, before lockdown?
Before it was announced, but it was weird because this was in the December.
Yeah.
I'd been training for a charity boxing match, and I got this for me it was just like a chest infection, like a bad cold at first, and then it just kept getting worse. Gone back to the doctors 3 times, and they said, "Oh, well, it's just viral." Because
they had no idea.
Yeah, it's viral. We can't give you any antibiotics because it's viral. So get on with it. So I was like, right, okay. Carried on and did my fight while I still felt like there's literally a video of me from the day of the fight, and I'm like that, can't breathe for a while. But we're raising money for cancer research, so it was kind of like, get a grip, I remember being stood before the medical exam holding a water bottle, because I thought if I start having a coughing fit, I can just say that I've swallowed a bit of water wrong, so they'll still let me fight. Because I got it in my head I was fine. And then 2 days after
But you'd
that,
been to the doctors.
I'd been to the doctors, yeah. They had no idea. They were like, one of the GPs that I saw, she came in because one of the nurses I'd seen, she'd called her in and she was like, oh, honestly, love, I had it last week. It's awful. I'm just getting over it now, but you can still hear it, can't you? It's just a really, really bad flu. And I was like, right, okay. But then, 2 days after my boxing match, which I shouldn't have done, because little did I know at this point I had pneumonia.
God.
2 days later, I was blue lighted because I couldn't breathe. And my lung had just gone. But within a few days, they gave me just some antibiotics and I was fine. But while I was at the hospital and I'd been taken in by these paramedics that were telling me, oh, you're like the fourth person this week in this area that's come down with this. They're calling it this Australian flu. And I was like, oh, okay. I got to the hospital. Everybody's being forced to wear a mask. And this was December the 16th, 2019. And they made me wear a mask and I was like, I'm finding it hard to breathe. Like, I can't breathe. I've tried putting a nebulizer thing on me and that's not helping me breathe. You're making me put a mask on when I can't get my breath. They also hid my medical records from that day of like everything that they did. I can't actually access them, which was weird. But again, they kept saying, oh, it's this Australian flu. But then, like a month later, it was then you started hearing about these cases and things, didn't you? And I thought, well, I've had that, I'll be fine now. But then,
little did we know.
How stupid was I? Yeah. I've had it 4 times now?
Yeah, I just do not want it again.
No.
Like, I've had it 3 times and I'm like, no. And I know what it does now.
Yeah.
Like, and every time's worse.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Well, the second I feel anything like that coming on now, I just do Barbara O'Neill's Flu Bomb, which is just all natural. And it tastes disgusting, but by God, does it kick a flu. It's like, no, you're just not coming in here. So now that's like my little saviour. Because, they were not fun times.
So I'm going to move us on to climate change. Happy questions. So, I mean, it's just your work-wise and just if it occurs in your work. I mean, you can take that question any way you want to. Like, a lot of the time it's sort of like, are you thinking about, and a lot of people take the kind of, how much do I travel and green credentials and stuff, but it's like, does it come up? Do you feel that climate change is in any way connected to your work, maybe? I
guess I am conscious of sometimes of, my own personal footprint in that I know the work that I do, I can't walk to work. I can't use public transport majority of the time. There are times, say if it's Leeds city centre, I can walk, or, most of the time I can just walk. If it's, say, at Civic Hall, for instance, I can walk down, that's fine. But a lot of venues are quite far out. I have to be able to drive. And it's a bit of a sore point with me, I guess, the climate change, because I feel like a lot of it can be quite angry and misinformed. And for instance, I had a Vauxhall Mocha EcoFlex car. So it was designed that, yes, it's a diesel, but it's meant to be more fuel conscious and eco conscious. It was only £20 a year tax because it wasn't penalised for having a massive engine, but it was big enough for all my kit. And it was economic on fuel, and it meant that if it's a really remote area and it's snowing, I can get there, right? But obviously you've probably seen what happened in Leeds, like what's happened a few times with people letting car tyres down of vehicles that they feel shouldn't be used, in a city centre. So I live like on the outskirts of the city centre, but I very much did need that car. But because it wasn't a trade van, they still targeted me, even though it's an EcoFlex on the side of it. And, let my tyres down. But when they did that, it actually damaged my back wheel. I had to have that replaced. And I had an angry, passive-aggressive note left on my windscreen saying, you're driving a gas guzzler. You shouldn't be, what reason do you have living in a city centre needing a car like that? And it just felt like a really personal attack when I'd actually always felt like, well, I always recycle. I was brought up that way. My dad's a farmer. He very much cares about the land, how it's used, how it's misused. And I'd always consider myself quite, just day to day, quite, aware, to the point where I didn't go and get, a Defender or something like that really could get me anywhere, because I do go to remote places. I got something that, oh no, that's definitely going to be better. And I was still penalised by, the extremist side of it. And it just kind of makes you feel like, oh, what's the point in trying then? Am I really making that much difference? Am I really, doing anything? Because with my job, because I'm not creating a product that's tangible that I can then be aware of, like materials, for instance, or how is it being sent out to people? How is that impacting it? It's quite hard to think of. So I can only really do it on a personal level. There's not much I can do from a business level. In what I do, it's
well, I mean,
tricky.
you need the car because all these people have their weddings far away, and also they live far away because the market's not big enough to just do your street.
Sometimes there's 3 locations
parish.
in one day. Sometimes you've got to be at bridal prep, groom prep, then you've got to be at another location for the ceremony, then you're at another one for the reception, and you've got to get there first. So it's a little tricky with that. I guess when I'm not at a wedding and I'm not working, I make a point of not using the car. That's my own little way of, okay, well, if I can walk there, that's fine. I don't need to use it because I already use it enough. And we're recycling things, and I'm conscious of where I get things from and how it's made. And I don't like fast fashion.
I mean, you work local area. You're not, you're not jet setting internationally, and you're not,
Oh no, and I think there's not. I don't think I'm sort of creating a huge impact with it. So it's not a massive priority, I don't think. I think because I'm generally just as aware as I feel I need to be. Yeah.
I mean, well, what do you think, like from your point of view, or like maybe, from the inside, I mean, in terms of like waste and impact and so on? I mean, obviously there's the driving, but I mean, other than your consumables, your lenses, I mean, you don't have to buy film anymore, but obviously like all the electronics, that's high impact. And you do go through, you will go through camera bodies and lenses and stuff because wear and tear and...
See, I try and find... So say I have like a camera body that I've had for, a couple of years and it's got a massive shutter count on it. Instead of me binning it, selling it so it can be potentially binned, I tend to try and give it away to somebody that's wanting to get into photography, because I know they're going to cherish it and they're not just going to throw it away and throw, the parts and the plastic and everything away. I also, a lot of photographers, you get excited about shiny new lenses, and as soon as the latest equipment's come out, you feel like, oh, well, if I don't have that, I'm not as good as this person because they have that. I'm very much not like that, not just because I can't afford it at the moment, but more so, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm very much sort of take care of my equipment. And I think, I think that can be a problem with some things, is people don't take care of things enough because they know very quickly, well, I can just order another one. Things aren't always built to last with things. And everything, is over-packaged all the time. So, even for instance, when I send out, I do send out like a USB sort of box, like a presentation box. I do make sure that's from recyclable products. If it's close enough by and I can sort of deliver it myself to the house, I can, I will. But I don't, say if I'm doing photography and videography, I don't send out them separately, make sure they're together, one trip, that sort of thing. But I also back everything up digitally, so I do push digital packages quite a lot so that people can make their own decisions around prints, because a lot of the time back in the day, you know, you'd always include an album, for instance. But for me, if you really, really want an album, you'll know exactly what you want it to look like. There's a lot of places you can do that. You can kind of do it yourself. And a lot of people just used to buy it because they thought they had to, and I found it quite wasteful. So I do push just digital only, and then, you know, you pick out your very best favourite ones rather than me picking them. And that to me is like a little bit of a way to cut down on waste and things. Because I do think it's ridiculous, you know, if you see in the run up to Christmas and you kind of perhaps sat in an office and you look around at like how many plastic packaged bags are coming through and boxes coming through, and you're like, that's for like one thing, but you've ordered 5 and it could have just all gone in that, or did you really need that? And it is, you know, constant, and you kind of see more and more delivery drivers every day rushing around, and you're like, is it necessary? I think especially in lockdown we got very used to, if I want it, I can have it now and I can have it instant. Do I really need it? No, but I want it because I can't have anything else. And then, you know, come out of lockdown, and I think some people have like kept that mentality of, well, I want it now, so I'm going to have it now. It doesn't matter if, you know, where I could just wait and I could actually go to that shop that's next to where I'm going anyway on Saturday and buy it, but no, I want it now. I think a lot, it bugs me a little bit.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's really hard to sort of make any kind of predictions about anything, but I mean, in the normal course of things, like, the pandemic is like many of the things that have happened this century. It's like we haven't really seen the results sort of play out, and with all the changes and stuff. I mean, I think the business will probably remain pretty much the same. It's like the tools have kind of changed, but you're still going to be doing the same thing in terms of the work. The worky bits will still be the worky bits, and we'll still need doing. And anything else that you want to add on climate change before I move us on, just to give you the opportunity? Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
So Brexit, again, I don't think this will have had a big effect on you. You're not working internationally.
Really. It's obviously it's just made everybody a little bit more skint, hasn't it? Like, I think I read the average person is sort of £2,000 sort of less off a year now because of you know, the costs that it's now implicated, and I think I feel that in terms of my business, you know, I'm not importing and exporting anything, but the knock-on effect of what it's done to everybody's everyday budget. You know, your budget for special things and unnecessary things has just got a lot smaller, and your capacity to save has got a lot smaller. So therefore, what you are able to pay or willing to pay for things has become a lot smaller. So, you know, but yet my everyday costs have got larger. So it's I guess that's the way it's impacted me, like everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, I can quite safely say I have been worse off after every successive government of this century. So.
Me too.
And that's not all on me. That's not all me. It's not just me doing that. I didn't do all of that to myself. Some of it I did. Some of it I did.
Same. I'll take like 30% blame.
So, right. What have we done? The 4 in terms of change. We've done COVID, climate change, Brexit. What's the other one? I've forgotten.
UBI.
No, that's coming up.
Okay.
Well, we'll do the change question. Well, no, let's do UBI first, then do the change question, because I think the change one will be interesting.
Okay.
It's social media, COVID, Brexit, climate change. Yeah, we've done them. So, UBI, Universal Basic Income. I don't know if you're familiar with the idea already. You've come across it before.
I've read a few articles about it, but I don't know a ton about it. Just the concept, I guess.
Well, yeah. I've said this a couple of times. So I ask about it for a few reasons, because one, I want to talk about it, and two, because the main sort of thing that I hear from people in terms of dismissing it is, oh, well, it would, it's that old trope of like people wouldn't work. And as we know from lockdown, that's not good for any of us. People want to work. And when I started this, I was expecting everyone to, be how they are in the office when they talk to you and be like, oh, I hate work. Work's awful. But it turns out that's all lies. Or this is all lies. Someone's lying somewhere. But people actually do like their work.
I think a lot of people do like the work,
Yeah. So I'm largely like, nobody really has said that they wouldn't work if there was a UBI. But yeah, if there was a universal basic income, how do you think that might change your work? Would it just give you a bit of security?
I think, it would. But I think it would allow me to have enough security to go back to a more balanced feeling of, I don't feel so pressured and depleted to pour everything into what is going to pay my necessities and keep up with that. And I have energy and, gusto left over to pour into developing myself and developing skills, or, I'd love to volunteer. I'd love to volunteer my time in retirement homes, and I've always wanted to do a project where I go in and I do free portraits so that they have relevant images of them and they feel seen. I've always wanted to do that, but unfortunately, my time is in exchange for money all the time. Has to be. There's not even a lot of time left over just for me to unwind or go and see friends for dinner, or and I think a UBI would allow a lot of people that I feel are stuck in a bit of a catch-22 to just have that bit of pressure off and that recognition of, we know that you are a human being and you need certain things to survive. This will help you to do that so that you can then thrive. Because I think, perhaps in the last 10 years particularly, a lot of working people that have a good work ethic, or, maybe if they don't, I think they've become perhaps a bit angry towards those that don't work for whatever reason. And there's like a little bit of not a divide as such, but it's like, oh, well, if they've never worked, and why am I paying for this person? Why am I paying for that person when I don't get enough? What's it going to take for me to get some help? And I think if something like that was introduced, it would level that a little bit and give everybody a bit more of a fair chance to, figure out what's going to take me where I want to go. And I can put that time in and I can dedicate myself or learn this skill or volunteer here, or I think it would help massively. I mean, I don't have a lot of hope with this government at the moment.
Or the next one.
Yeah. But, and I just think, it's all kind of broken as the system, but I think something like that is something that a country that's wanting to evolve would adopt.
Okay, so I'm going to do the last question. We have overrun here. I will blame that entirely on me.
No, it's
ranting.
Me. I'm a waffle.
So, well, I haven't gone off on one for a while, so I've been quite good the last few. So last question is, what would you change about work if you could? I think we've kind of covered pay and conditions.
Yeah.
What would you change if you could?
I think perhaps a bit more development and progression available in that sort of part of the company. I think it's sort of lucky sometimes that I enjoy it as much as I do, because I think it's probably quite hard for other companies to get people that would do this job and stick at it long term, because there's not a lot of progression in it. And I think some people are just happy doing the same thing and, you know, doing it forever, and that's fine. But I do think a lot of people, especially if they are more creative minded, need to know they're working towards something. So I think perhaps a bit more progression in that sense. I think, I don't know, perhaps, it's in the same stretch really, but perhaps opportunity to kind of learn, you know, more about the sector itself and, you know, perhaps do more training. And just because I feel like there are times I can be asked questions when I'm with vendors that are in the middle of sending documents and things like that, and that would be helpful to just kind of know what terms mean and timelines of things so that, you know, I'm always giving accurate information. I think, you know, it doesn't matter what role you're doing, you can't have enough sort of training and learning and development. I think
experience as well, like that's really
you're never going to know everything,
because and especially because we move companies so often, it's like you so rarely get to really learn how that firm really works. It's like you get the general idea and you've got the general idea of most places, but to really get into the nitty gritty and really know somewhere inside out. But
I think other than that, I probably wouldn't change too much about it. I mean, you know, it'd always be nice to sort of earn more that feels reflective of my experience and skill set that I bring, because I know that in the past I haven't really had photographers come and do it, so I know that is having a positive impact on business and it is making a difference. So it'd always be nice to have sort of more money, but in terms of the job and the values they have, the way that they operate, you know, can't really grumble. I think I've got quite lucky really with them.
I mean, would you want more drama in your photographs, perhaps? Going right back to the beginning and the sort of wall photography, is that the only thing that's really missing now, is dramatic photos?
Yeah, I feel like I'm sort of just pushing myself to get that outside of the 9 to 5, because I have you know, that bit of pressure off financially. I'm just pushing that more with, you know, with the business and with my sideline stuff, because I can feel like I want to do that again. But yeah, there's not a lot of drama in property photography. Everything's poised, everything is polished, and you know, you're going in and thinking, is that cushion in the right place? And I need to move that tea towel because it's distracting from the integrated oven, and it's like detail. So it's not very, I wouldn't say it's not creative, but yeah, it's definitely not like Lee Miller.
It's very formal.
Yeah, very formal. You know, I think, the sort of softer side is obviously interactions with the vendors and things, but it is very, you've got to be regimented. It has to have a certain look and certain angles, and there's certain rules to it. So, you know, it's quite structured. Yeah. But I don't really know how else it could be. You know, I couldn't really change that. If I wanted to, it wouldn't work the same way.
It'd be some kind of gonzo photographer who's, you know, turn up at odd hours and in various states to be like, this is no good. This is no good.
Yeah.
And throw things around, rearrange all the furniture.
Yeah, like, oh no, I've come first thing in the morning, I want to get you sleeping in the bed so it shows how much light comes through. So just stay there. I'll just get you where you're at.
Yeah. Like, this is what people really want to know. I want to capture the noise on camera.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Stand against that window and look like you have a headache.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to Photoshop a train in because there's a train line. We'll make it. Yeah. We'll show off that they go by every 30 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it would be funny. You know, the reality of it is, you know, a lot of young families maybe like just had a baby and like, damn, we need to move into a bigger place. Like we've got the photographer coming around and the house is a mess and we've got like baby stuff everywhere and all these toys. What do we do? Yeah. And then I'll walk in and I'll say, oh, is that the downstairs toilet? And they're like, no, that's the cupboard, don't touch it. Because everything's just crammed and they've like put it all away and they're all frightened to death and going to open anything. And I'm like, I'm not judging you. Like we all do it. Like nobody lives like this. Yeah. I don't know why, you know, I have to even sort of remove bins from external photographs. You know, we put our bins in front of the house, got to remove them. It's like, why? We all have bins. Why is that so offensive? Why is that going to stop you looking at a house and thinking, I don't want to view that? But it's just weird little things that we've got to consider.
It's psychology, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. It's like, and it's that's the difference between a social media post and like a proper professional.
Yeah.
It's like it's the kind of pretend of objectivity, isn't it? It's like, look, this is how it would be.
Yes.
In a professional
and perfect
setting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask for the socials. I've taken more than enough of your time this evening.
Okay.
So where can people find you and find out more and find your work?
So my handle is Holly Thompson Photos. That's on Instagram. On Facebook, it's just Holly Thompson Photo and Film. Because I do videography, short films, mainly photography. But yeah, you can, just type in Holly Thompson. I tend to come up. If you put photographer next to it, generally find me that way. And on wedding websites as well. But yeah, I'm always listed in the area for West Yorkshire, so yeah.
And then I'm just going to ask you a random sort of final question. You can answer however you want. What about exhibiting the work? Like, do you have a kind of curated, like, do you have an exhibition in your head? Like, it doesn't have to come into reality, but like,
it's in my head. It's very.
Do you think you would ever realize that?
Yeah, I would love to actually. It is something that I'd love to do. There's a couple of projects I'd really like to do and then exhibit it. But I do have sort of a little file on my laptop that no one really sees, but it's my personal favourite that one day I think I will put together. But it's getting to that point where I feel like anybody would want to come and look at it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, I get the sense again. We can cut all of this. I get the sense again that it's. You've ticked, you're a photography professional, but you're kind of on the border with the art side. Like, am I really a photographic artist yet?
Yeah. Can I feel and see?
Well, it's satisfying it for yourself, isn't it? It's not about anyone else. It's have I ticked that box for myself?
Definitely.
And it's like, you're obviously getting there.
Yeah, but I've definitely not got to that point.
You're not quite feeling that I've done that yet.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't feel like I'm an artist. I feel like I'm
You're still chasing that ultimate shot, aren't you? Really, kind of.
Definitely. Yeah. It's like, well, what's it going to be that's going to be like, you're in the right place at the right time. You read the situation right. You got the settings right. You also gave it something no other person could give it, and you saw it in your way and captured it in a way only you could capture it, but said something to everyone.
And you will never know what that is until you see it.
No. Yeah, I'm hunting for something that I don't know what it looks like. So that's why I've got to put myself, just out there so much and like say yes to so many things and try and just make sure I'm leaving that door open all the time, I think.
Yeah. And it'll come to you when you sat doing the most ordinary, prosaic thing.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly.
Because life's horrible like that.
People in my inner circle are absolutely sick to death of the camera just being stuck to my hand. We'll be on holiday and it's there. And they're like, put it away. You need to rest. I'm like, no, this is when like I can just do the fun stuff and I just want, just in case. I don't want to miss anything. Like, yeah, but if you always think like that, you're missing it already because you're not being present. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm watching everything twice. Like, I'm watching everything. But it's because I know, like, one day I'm going to get that shot. It's going to happen. Just, yeah.
I think you need that, though. I think, like, even when it comes in those sort of ironic moments of, like, I think the professional is like it's always there. It always contributes. It's always part of it, you know? Like, even if it's just a quick woo, snap.
Yeah.
It's like, it all counts. It's all worth something, I reckon. That's the conclusion of this podcast after
it's all worth
many
something.
episodes.
Yeah.
It's all worth something.
Yeah. I like that.
Somewhere.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Sometime, you know, maybe not this
maybe
time
not
and place, but okay. So I'm going to press stop.
Okay.
You made it through. Well done, you. Thank you again to Holly for being my guest. Thanks, as always, to all my guests. And thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. You can find Holly at www.flashforwardphotography.co.uk. And if you'd like to contact this show about being the guest, or for any other reason, send your electronic mails to workinghourspod@westernstudios.com. Okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it's impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So try to work for peace and try to plan with kindness. Raise your voice, but reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is created, hosted, produced, recorded, edited and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain, and was taken from museopen.org. Remember Western Studios Leeds Limited when you're ready to start making your content in West Yorkshire. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/western_studios_Leeds and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/western-studios. Bookmark western-studios.com so you can see the latest prices and use my contact page to drop me a message about your own podcast project or working hours at any time from anywhere. Maybe you want or need a podcast host, co-host or narrator for your podcast project. Maybe you just need another voice for one or more episodes of your show. Podcasts are so much more than gossip, book promotions and marketing for online courses. Podcasts and other audio content get your online brand out there. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to have an audiobook or video course? Want to share your learning, knowledge and expertise in your field? Want to learn, teach or raise awareness of something general or particular? Want to improve internal comms with messages your staff might actually engage with? Or do you just want to brighten up the world with some entertaining content? Then make a podcast. If you're making your podcast within West Yorkshire, then think about making it with western-studios.com. Whatever your podcast questions or needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.